Industry analysis. We all know industry analysis is a market strategy tool used by businesses to determine if they want to enter a product or service market. Company management must carefully analyze several aspects of the industry to determine if they can make a profit selling goods and services in the market. In this lesson, we will explain the meaning of economic features of strategic management, describe the competitive forces shaping the strategy, and define competition and value. After going through this presentation, you should be able to explain 5 competitors' forces that shape strategy, pestle analysis, competition and value, industry structure, technology life cycle, and typical steps in industry analysis. Porter's 5 forces model is one of the most popular frameworks in management. This framework is widely used across management disciplines, especially so in case of strategy and marketing. This is one model that has brought strategic management in the heart of management agenda. Porter's 5 forces model helps analyze competitive scenario in an industry. This framework helps determine industry profitability and can be used as one of the inputs while deciding to enter an industry. This famous framework was contributed by Michael E. Porter. So the 5 forces that determine the industry profitability as per this framework are threat of new entry, buyer power, supplier power, threat of substitution, and competitive rivalry. There are various parameters which can be used to determine the nature of these forces. Each of the force is classified as low, medium, or high depending on the nature of those parameters. The parameters used to measure nature of the forces are described in the below diagram. Ideal scenario to enter an industry is entry barrier equals to high, buyer power equals to low, supplier power equals to low, threat of substitution equals to low, and competitive rivalry equals to low to medium. Current players try to build high entry barriers to prohibit newcomers from entering. Examples of high entry barrier: strong distribution channel of ITC in the cigarette industry. Examples of low supplier power: HUL getting long credit periods from suppliers. Pestle analysis is a useful tool for understanding the big picture of the environment in which you are operating and the opportunities and threats that lie within it. By understanding the environment in which you operate, you can take advantage of the opportunities and minimize the threats. Specifically, the pest or pestle analysis is a useful tool for understanding risks associated with market growth or decline, and as such the position, potential, and direction for a business or organization. PESTLE is an acronym for Political, Economic, Social, Technological, Legal, and Environmental Factors, which are used to assess the market for a business or organizational unit strategic plan. In political analysis, we analyze the current and potential influences from political pressures. In economic, we analyze the local, national, and world economic impact. In sociological analysis, we analyze the ways in which changes in society affect the project. Technological analysis, we analyze how new and emerging technology affects our project or organization. In legal analysis, we analyze how local, national, and global legislation affects the project. In environmental analysis, we analyze local, national, and global environmental issues. The competitive forces reveal the drivers of industry competition. A company strategist who understands that competition extends well beyond existing rivals, will detect wider competitive threats and be better equipped to address them. Understanding industry structure is equally important for investors as for managers. The five competitive forces reveal whether an industry is truly attractive, and they help investors anticipate positive or negative shifts in industry structure before they are obvious. The five forces distinguish short-term blips from structural changes and allow investors to take advantage of undue pessimism or optimism. Those companies whose strategies have industry transforming potential become far clearer. The conversation between investors and executives would focus on the structural, not the transient. If both executives and investors looked at competition this way, capital markets would be a far more effective force for company success and economic prosperity. Executives and investors would both be focused on the same fundamentals that drive sustained profitability. The structure of the industry refers to the nature of barriers to entry and competitive dynamics in the industry. Four characteristics of industry structure are particularly important to the performance of new firms in the industry: capital intensity, advertising intensity, concentration, and average firm size. Capital intensity measures the importance of capital as opposed to labor in the production process. Capital obtained from financial markets is more expensive than internally generated capital. Investors demand a premium for bearing the risk that comes from the gap of information between investors and entrepreneurs. Industries are fragmented for a wide variety of reasons, with greatly differing implications for competing in them. Some industries are fragmented for historical reasons, because of the resource or abilities of the firms historically in them, and there is no fundamental economic basis for fragmentation. A high diverse product line requiring customization to individual users requires a great deal of user-manufacturer interface on small volumes of product and can favor the small firm over the larger one. Consolidation has long been used to achieve and sustain power in the marketplace. Indeed, creating a monopoly position through consolidation can be one of the most effective ways of achieving economic returns through a business venture. The framework is meant to guide thinking about consolidations and highlight the factors that will ultimately influence success. Fragmented industries are populated with businesses that are almost by definition small private companies. Fragmented industries develop for a variety of reasons. These vary from market segments that require specialized businesses and products to the historical evolution of the industry. The historical evolution of fragmented industries has affected the customers and competitors. An affirmative answer to all three suggests that a consolidator will face stiff opposition and may not be able to successfully consolidate the industry. Change catalysts can be both a positive and a negative issue for a consolidation play. In the positive light, change catalysts can alter a fragmented industry to enable successful consolidation. Identification and full investigation of the first four primary variables is essential to this fifth variable. Slow growth and few opportunities may still characterize fragmented industries where a consolidation play will work. The technology life cycle, TLC, describes the commercial gain of a product through the expense of research and development phase and the financial return during its vital life. The technology life cycle associated with a product or technological service is different from product life cycle, PLC, dealt with in product life cycle management. The technology life cycle may be seen as composed of four phases. The research and development R&D phase, sometimes called the bleeding edge, when incomes from inputs are negative and where the prospects of failure are high. The ascent phase, when out-of-pocket costs have been recovered and the technology begins to gather strength by going beyond some point A on the technology life cycle, sometimes called the leading edge. The maturity phase, when gain is high and stable, the region going into saturation marked by M. The decline or decay phase, after a point D of reducing fortunes and utility of the technology. In modern world's business trends with technology life cycles are shortening due to competition and rapid innovation, a technology becomes technically licensable at all points of the technology life cycle, whereas earlier it was licensed only when it was passed through its stage of maturity. The technology life cycle begins to flatten out, the region shown as M, when equivalent or challenging technologies come into the competitive space and begin to eat away market share. Define the relevant industry, such as what products are in it, which ones is part of another distinct industry, what is the geographic scope of competition. Next, identify the participants and segment them into groups, if appropriate, who are the buyers and buyer groups, suppliers and supplier groups, the competitors, the substitutes, and the potential entrants. Next, assess the underlying drivers of each competitive force to determine which forces are strong and which are weak, and why. Determine overall industry structure and test the analysis for consistency. Why is the level of profitability what it is? Which are the controlling forces for profitability? Is the industry analysis consistent with actual long-run profitability? Are more profitable players better positioned in relation to the five forces? Analyze recent and likely future changes in each force, both positive and negative. Identify aspects of industry structure that might be influenced by competitors, by new entrants, or by your company. Now let us check if we have understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. A healthy industry structure should be as much a competitive concern to strategists as their company's own position. Right or wrong? Right. The threat of entry in an industry depends on the height of entry barriers that are present and on the reaction entrants can expect from incumbents. Right or wrong? Right. The weakness of rivalry reflects not just the intensity of competition but also the basis of competition. Right or wrong? Wrong. Before we end, let us briefly revise what we have studied till so far. Porter's five forces model framework is widely used across management disciplines, especially so in case of strategy and marketing. This framework helps determine industry profitability and can be used as one of the inputs while deciding to enter an industry. Pestle analysis is a useful tool for understanding the big picture of the environment in which you are operating and the opportunities and threats that lie within it. Pestle is an acronym for political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental factors which are used to assess the market for a business or organizational unit strategic plan. The competitive forces reveal the drivers of industry competition. A company strategist who understands that competition extends well beyond existing rivals will detect wider competitive threats and be better equipped to address them. The structure of the industry refers to the nature of barriers to entry and competitive dynamics in the industry. Four characteristics of industry structure are particularly important to the performance of new firms in the industry: capital intensity, advertising intensity, concentration, and average firm size. The technology life cycle associated with a product or technological service is different from product life cycle dealt with in product life cycle management. The technology life cycle begins to flatten out, the region shown as M, when equivalent or challenging technologies come into competitive space and begin to eat away market share.